All right, gang, welcome to League of Traders Live. So we are at the end of March already, and we are talking about megaphones this week. So last week we were talking about two-wave moves and how a lot of those can serve as some of the better patterns in the current market to just kind of reduce your risk on strategies. And over the weekend, we were looking at two Bs and two Ts. So we're really trying to focus on some of the core strategies here this month, just to give you a good framework of what to work with. Before that, we were looking at advanced trade management. So if you go back and you study the logs from the very beginning of the month, you'll see a lot more of the detailed kind of advanced stuff. We're going to be looking at some of the megaphones happening in the market right now here today. And we're also going to look at some of the megaphones that you guys have been trading as well. So I've got a couple of those that you have sent over to me. If you have some others, please go ahead and post them in Telegram here during class, and we will take a look at those as well. So to begin with, I just want to show you guys a really quick pattern because we're looking at, where things are happening in the overall market and some of the types of lows that can form. So before we dive into our megaphones, I want to share with you a move happening on oil. And it is a version of that two-wave type of pattern. It's a little bit 2B-ish, not quite a full 2B, but it's a really typical type of pattern that we'll see happening at lows. So what I want you guys to watch for as you're looking at reversal strategies, shorter term or longer term or whatnot, we want to look for things where the momentum is starting to shift. So here we kind of get a little bit of a megaphone forming, except the difference is that we don't have a higher high here. So we have the spirit of that megaphone. It's just not fully there yet. So slightly higher high would have triggered our megaphone as a short right here. And all we'd really need is a tick or two. And that would have been a continuation megaphone on the short. We're looking at a really small time frame here. But then what you'll notice is that as this comes down, it doesn't quite come into our lower channel line. I haven't drawn a straight line, but it doesn't quite come down in there. If it had, it would be a zone to start to watch for as a megaphone as reversal. But instead, we have a little bit of a hybrid here. So it goes into a measured move. And we also have two little smaller moves in each of these on the downside. So this triggers buy. So this type of momentum shift where we get this two-wave move, this is the type of thing that we can look for now in the market for reversals off of some of our lows. Now, this went into a Phoenix here just a couple of minutes ago, kind of a checkmark Phoenix. I'll post you guys an update so you can see what that looks like. It's not really turning around too much yet. Momentum's getting off to a little bit of a slow start, but it's the type of pattern that you scale it up to a larger time frame. It's worth a shot as a buy. And then you can adjust it based upon momentum using our advanced trade management stuff. So I'm going to show you that here quick. And then we're going to go look at some megaphones. Yep, crude oil. So here is that check mark Phoenix right here. And a technical buy on it would be this. So we're looking at a really tiny pattern here. But again, these patterns, you can scale them up to much larger time frames. And when we're looking at time development, you'll see here we've got a little bit of a head and shoulders, but the momentum kind of started to shift here. So that could pull it out, meaning it would still have potential to try to turn around and get going on the upside just by factoring in, hey, we've got a little bit of a low over here that could extend that out a little bit more. So it's kind of hitting support right now. and this would make it a do or die spot. Now, of course, on our bigger time frames, our momentum on the downside is pretty strong, but it's a really good support level still, nevertheless. And guess what? It's reacting right at that spot too. So I'm actually going to go grab that here quick and show you guys. I'm putting that time extension on the chart so you guys can see how perfectly it is holding. So check that out exactly at that level we were just talking about. So really, really perfect timing on this one here. Again, overall larger time frames, I'm going to show you guys the 3000 tick so you can see what's happening with the bigger momentum. And that is influencing why this is getting off to a little bit of a slower start. But it has it to be on that larger time frame. It's just not the best location. So here is the to be down, slightly lower low. So we're getting a little bit of that first trigger, but again, momentum is kind of strong on the second move. So it's not really the best location. It's midway in a range. Lower ends, of course, is always better, but we have all of this support over here. So it still has the potential there to be able to start to take off and hold this zone a little bit better. Might go and do another little flush here before it fully gets going, but that's something to watch here. So this is just, an example of some of the ways that the market can reverse off of the lows. NASDAQ actually just did the same thing too. I'll show you NASDAQ really fast. Yep, we've got some people on it already. When I was watching these as I was going into class, I'm like, oh, do I trade it? Do I not trade it? It's right just getting started. It's seriously one of the best patterns right now. So here's the one in the NASDAQ. So hold on a second. My ear is itching. Okay, here we go. So here is the one on the NASDAQ. And you can see a little bit of a shift there. And what you'll notice is when you drive this line through the downtrend channel, that most of the action is holding above that channel. So that's a really good clue to get it turning around. Up here at highs, we almost had a megaphone. See how this starts out? The way that starts out is really good for a megaphone reversal on the downside, but we didn't get that higher high. It makes timing this short a little bit trickier because it only had a 1, 2, 3 on the upside. So this could have paused here and then done that extra little move up to have taken it into a megaphone reversal. So it's really important to watch for little clues like that because it can tell you what the next most probable pattern is going to be. And in this case, it had that megaphone potential. It just rounded here instead of going into more of a base. When we look at the time development, the spacing, where that spacing would have hit, it would have been good too. And that also means that since this is coming up pretty strongly, it's going into more of a base, this was a buy as a megaphone continuation. It just held the first main resistance for megaphone continuation. So when we're looking at megaphones as a continuation pattern, our first main resistance level to watch for is when it gets about to that 2/3 or so of the way back up. The next one is when it comes up to the upper channel. And then the next one is a measure move here and here. So when this is a reversal off of a major downtrend, then you're going to be aiming for the bigger one. But if trend placement is kind of uncertain, then you can look to take partials here, take all of it off at this level up here when it's coming up into that upper channel. And those are going to be the more conservative exits to watch for. Oil is still holding up here. NASDAQ is actually trying to do a megaphone right now because this move here is pulled up to a slightly higher high. So it has the potential to develop into a megaphone here too. If I bought that megaphone continuation, could you adjust your stop in the kneecap of the move down from the first resistance? What I would use for, your stop adjustment would be that channel break there. So it's not a huge stop adjustment. It's basically pretty close to break even. There might have been some clues in here on a smaller time frame, but it's hard to see that right now. So like, for example, in here, you might have seen a clear um, uh, tilted avalanche in there. Let me see. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of times it might not give you a huge clue on a bigger time frame. I'm going to close up some of these other charts here that are trying to load, but it might give you a clue on that smaller one. All right. We got to get this to load June here fast. So it's holding that high that we were just watching for potential for a megaphone. So it did pivot off of that zone. We'll get that pulled up here in just a second. Oil is still holding that low pretty well. It's just kind of stepping up, but it has the potential here to try to gain momentum now. We'll see how it goes. I'll grab that here while we're waiting on this one. So this is a good one to go and, print this out as an example and take some notes on it. Oops. I am still failing at copy and paste. There we go. I hit enter too fast. It doesn't grab the right one. So here's what we were looking at. We were originally looking at this low here, and that was kind of lining up with even spacing over there. And then we were looking at that over there, and that was the perfect spacing. So we have a number of different setups here coming off of the low. Here's the first one that I was tracking right as we were going into class. Here's the second one that we were looking at. And then here's the third one right here. So when you buy these are levels that you can also add in. Even this would have been considered a zone because you're doing your double tap type of entry. I thought about this as it was hitting there, but because of the momentum on the way down, I also considered it could do a second little move down. So that one would have been a higher risk. This one's not, even though the momentum down is good because it's right at that time development. All right, let's see if our June chart has loaded. It is still thinking about it. Yeah, my problem is I hit the rollover, but then I'm not saving my workspace because I closed down some of my charts. I need to open it, switch it, and then save my workspace. It'll come up for us. Could I run through the targets on each of the points 3, 4, and 5, and which you could see traits of on each wave? Donna mentioned that wave 5 normally doesn't give a second chance, which the NQ did yesterday. Yeah, I saw that one. Oops. Getting that message too on some of these. Let me go and pull up that chart she posted here. And we'll come back to this. And by the way, that NQ is basically turned around really well off of that. So we are seeing that continuing to develop with that megaphone. It held that high really well. So that would have been a short right as we were getting started here too in class. I'll show you that one quick. So here's what we were looking at just a second ago, waiting for the live chart to come up over here. But here's where I said, hey, this could be going into a megaphone. And lo and behold, it is holding pretty well so far. So target zones, what we'll often see then coming off of, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. What you'll often see is that right here is a zone that we have a potential stall at. And if you actually look at the NQ Live, you're seeing it stall there right now. It's usually around 76.4%. And when it goes for the full megaphone, this will then go and do a, yes. This will go and do a measured move down into here. And sometimes it pushes a little bit past that lower end of connecting the two lows here. So you'll also want to watch, like, what do we get from measured moves here and here, because that can give you a little bit of a cleaner exact target level on the breakdown. So we got a little bit of a pause on the NQ. It's trying to offer that continuation right now. We'll see what happens. Haven't looked at the larger time frame on this. Maybe some of you actually caught this one since we were talking about it right as we got started. Here it is. Let's look at some of the larger time frames on it quick though. Well, trend placement is okay. It's kind of at a level where this can go and even break down further. So I wouldn't necessarily treat it as a megaphone as a reversal. Even though we've got this coming into 0.5 now, there's more of a risk that this continues to hold as a mega lanch. So this is 0.5 right now that it's coming into. So here's the short, here's 0.5. So the question is, can it treat this like a two-wave correction and hold that or not? I don't generally like that. Like to see a megaphone when it's at the last part of a two-wave correction. There's actually more of a possibility that it can continue to break. So this is a higher risk one as a reversal now. So it worked really well as the mega lanch, but because of the placement on the trend, not as good. What I like to see with the two-wave move is a nice two-wave pullback. Sometimes that two-wave pullback can even gain momentum on the second wave down and still hold and turn back around. That's fine. But when it goes and then goes into a megaphone, you're going to find that the odds are higher that it will break and it will keep going. So that's a pro when you're looking at this as a mega lanch on the larger time frame. And lo and behold, it is trying to do that. It's still in that zone from 0.5, so I wouldn't consider it totally broken here. So these would be zones if you're on the mega lanch that you could protect, part of your trade. But given the placement, I wouldn't protect as much of it as I would normally because of that greater odds of trying to continue to break. So targets on each of the points, 3, 4, and 5, and what trades could you see on each wave? So what Donna was saying was that she was in a trade yesterday that was a megaphone. And so what she was talking about was second chance opportunities. So that would be something like this, where it would pull back up, kind of retest that zone, and then go. So we will see that in some circumstances, but not as often as others. So it's basically a little bit of a con, because the risk is that this could shift momentum here and then turn around. So what we prefer to see is that strong move 2/3 of the way down, and then the next move as the continuation. So yeah, you guys see we're getting more than that 0.5 on this. It's still in the zone, but it's come down to a level here where now this could go and do like another move and try to gain steam there. We'll see how it does. Let me show you guys the one from her yesterday. I've also got Eula sent me charts too. You guys, that is beautiful, Scott. Look at that. See that 2T there on his? And it's part of a little bit of a megaphone, but I wouldn't typically label this a megaphone. So you've got this little pullback here and it widens up. Kind of hard to see my blue, but this is so small. I wouldn't usually consider that as a clear point. I would consider this the 2-wave move down, the 2-wave up, and then this is the 2T. All right, let's go find Jonas. Beautiful avalanche there. See that? Look, there's a pretty avalanche. So here's what she was talking about. So I know her chart's a little bit hard to see on my monitor, but you've got the first point, the pullback, and then here, see how it goes and it does a double test of that high. So you get that second chance entry on this one. It's very rare that you'll have that happening, and it can increase the risk on the trade. So sometimes you can have it up here, and that's great because that shifts the momentum, but it's still within the context of this uptrend channel coming off of the lows. So when it goes and does this, the risk is that it can continue and do a shift like that and break higher. So I'm certain what she was probably watching for was, how does it react off of that level? So if it reacts strongly, then great, you can still hold on to it. And you could even go and add into it if you had taken some off here, coming into some of the resistance, you could add back into it at that level. But you would want to see it immediately begin to pull down off of that high. And you can see she was a little bit on the aggressive side here with this trade. It came down into, that lower 1/4 or so of this range, tested the previous low zone in here. So it got some gains coming off at that point. Then it went and did a measured move almost as a continuation. So this is where, what's going on in a larger time frame is going to serve as more of a guide. If it's kind of iffy, then you won't necessarily want to hold on to it. Like she said, and she didn't quite trust it. Check out our NASDAQ though. What'd I tell you guys? Got that continuation. It's still going. What we can look at for target levels on this That's cool. We got to see this right from the very beginning of where it was triggering. You can go to the absolute low of the megaphone to the absolute high of the megaphone. That's going to give you your 100% as your first main level to watch there. And then you can also look at it here. Well, I guess this one's a little bit higher, but you can also look at it here. In megaphones, lows to highs is a really good way though. Notice the momentum. So what did I tell you could happen right there? Kneecap, yes. So that means, here we got the 123.6. That means though, it has potential that you could get a move like this. Now this one is just this entire move, but you have a little smaller portion of it here with a smaller measure move right there. And it's kind of hard to see it on this. Let me show you it on the 15-second chart. So you can see it a little bit better here, where we've got that last portion, kind of where it gains steam with the last two-wave move. So it kind of starts off slower, gains steam there. So sometimes I'll look at that because that's an impulse move that's really close to previous impulse moves that we've seen. So that can tell me, hey, that might give us a little bit of a stall there. And as we can see, it's doing a little bit. So what you would want to see here is another little kneecap to kind of try to keep it going. And this is where you would start to get aggressive with your trailing stops. You could even use the channel break like that. I'm just reading your guys' questions. You wouldn't measure the first wave? Let's see here. So what we've got is this is our move down. Here's the megaphone we are watching. Here was the first trigger, and then it gave a second trigger with the momentum shift. Then we've got, so for what we're looking at for measured moves, so you're looking at from here to here first, and here to here down, and then up and down. Let me clear this and show you. So this could have taken you out of the trade here right now, or you'd be watching it right there as it's kind of testing that upper channel. Whoops, sorry guys, trying to erase this. So what we would be looking at here is Fibonacci extensions. High, low, high. You can see we're right at the 123.6 right now. Clear those others so you can see it in the background. And then you could also have looked at it here. With most megaphones, I'll go like this though. And then I'll watch the continuations and look for those measured moves on the continuations. So since this popped really fast right here with advanced trade management, what are things we would do if we still had part of the position off on there? What would have been the options? If I'm thinking, I should have probably got out of that, what do you think the options would have been? So there's two ways you can do advanced trade management here. When you get this really strong pop and you're getting close to your larger target levels for measured moves, you can exit as it pulls back. That's one option. You can exit when the channel breaks, knowing that you're going to get a second wave up. Or if you still like the downside potential, you'd wait for the second wave up. When that channel breaks down, mark that high and move your stop above that high, and then track it down. So if this went into a range here like a phoenix, then you would get out as it's pulling back within some of the moves in there. Or you would move your stop to above that channel. Just the same type of thing that happened here, just on a different scale. So there's a couple of ways you can do advanced trade management on this, just depending upon what your larger end game here for a target is. Let me go look at the larger time frame again. So 100 tick chart, we've got, pretty good levels of support over here. So what could happen at this point is it could pop up, still come lower, but just start to do bigger kind of widening up zones as it heads lower. So then you have to decide, well, how much are you willing to like hold to get back? And sometimes what I'll do here is I'll do like the opposite of what I do at highs. So at highs, you'll see me get into some, take off some kind of quickly, add in, when things are rolling over. You can do the same thing at lows. So you can take off, add back in when you get a two wave, go for your next move down, take it off, and kind of, roll with it as it's playing out at the lows. So you can see the two wave here held, and that's why you want to wait for that channel to break there before you would move your stop above that if you were looking for another move down. Now, if I didn't want to hold for another move down, this pop up here, I would use the pullback to get out. Alan, did I answer your question in there somewhere? Long Phoenix here is a bad idea. Yeah, I wouldn't do a Phoenix here. See this momentum on this 1 minute time frame? I'm not fighting that momentum yet. Where would be a point that we could get a better chance of a reversal? Here's the bigger 100%, by the way, on this. Where would we have a better chance of a bounce, you guys? Nicole, 76.4. 76.4 of what? I'm not going to make an assumption here of the retrace of this move over here. So you've got two ways to do this. You can go from the low to the high and watch for it down in here. I'm going to mark this as a horizontal line. Then you also have this move here, which we're coming into right now. So we could get a little bit of a bounce at that point. Momentum's still really strong, so I would still be more cautious on this one. I think that it's better if it goes for that lower one. And you can see it's not reacting a ton here, but there is still a chance to get a bit of reaction. Let's go to a smaller time frame so we can see this. So what do you see on the smaller time frame as it's coming into that? You see that two waves there, you guys? Yeah, we've got a little bit of a 2B. So it's kind of trying a little bit. So on something like this, if I enter this, I'd be pretty aggressive with part of the trade and then, see how it reacts to build into it. But I would be like super fast on taking some gains off on things like this. And then just trying to build in a little bit better. Because I think that the larger one is going to have a bit of a stronger support zone. So we could get a little bit of a reaction off of here, but then it could still come and go lower just as it's widening up a little bit more. So let's go down to this so you can see how this is playing out here. So given that this is kind of having a little bit of a slower move, here is T2 on the 2B. That's where I would have taken off some of it. So even though it's really small right now, because of how it hit T2, where it didn't just go up into it really fast, it had a two wave where it kind of shifted, I'd want to have taken off some of the gains in there and known that now there's a little bit of a better chance this is going to try to go for that bigger 76.4 we were talking about. Here's the double tap. Yeah, what you have to pay attention to is always making sure you're watching what the momentum is doing on that larger time frame. So for example, I was showing you guys a chart on gold earlier. It had the potential to try to do a phoenix, but it wasn't perfect, and it shifted momentum to the point that there's no longer even an option for that. Let me show you that. And this was also an attempt at a mega phoenix here too. See that right there when it just did that double tap that I pointed out? And this would be your first main level on that. So see how it's about 76.4 on the way back up? That again is that first main level. So what we're seeing is that this is just not going off of that 2B, which means that it's going to have a harder time. We're probably going to see that larger 76.4 that we were looking at. So that's why you would get a more aggressive with managing this because of how this is playing out slower. And what that would mean then is if the rest of your trade ended up stopping out, you would still walk away with gains because of how you manage the back and forth moves within that. So if you buy it, you take off part, you add back in on the double tap, you take off part again. When that goes, if that stops out, you're not going to have a loss. You'll probably end up with a gain. And since you've got a two-wave move down here, you could move your stop up at that point to above that level too. So original stop would be here. You would not move it here because it's only one pullback. But after the second pullback, you can move your stop up there. And then this holds here, you can move it up even tighter. Okay, let me show you that gold quick, and then we're going to go to some of those charts that you guys are posting here. So here's gold. And what I was watching for was, could this go and do a phoenix? The main con was that this popped and shifted here. And so this was basically the do or die. Could it do an inverse head and shoulders there? And instead, as you can see, it gave a beautiful short. So you want to watch those little details. And actually, the short here was very similar to what we saw in the bigger time frame. Going in overnight trade. And guess what? Look what our Nasdaq's doing. Here it is right at that bigger 76.4 here. So this is the next zone that it can give an attempt at. So far momentum is really strong into it. Let's see if we got anything on a smaller scale. No real setup in there. Oh, you do have it on the tick chart though. Look at the 20 tick. See, there's your two waves. There's your little flush. There's your trigger point. So that's where you'll be looking at to try again. And notice a little bit better reaction this time around. So here's the reaction over here. Here's the reaction over here. Don't you love it when the market does exactly what you tell it to do? Every single move since we started class, it has listened to us. So here we've got a little bit of resistance, just with a two-wave move up, and it's kind of shifting a little bit. So what you'd want to see here are, maybe like this is a tilted kneecap to offer the continuation. Let's go back up to larger time frames again. So usually the 76.4, you have a pretty good shot that it's going to go to 61.8. So a lot of times I'm not going to be doing too much taking off gains when it's something like this. You can watch these little previous highs or previous lows rather as like some minor levels of resistance. Usually it will make it to that 61.8. So then you've got to decide, how aggressive do I want to get with my trade management on it there? We'll watch that as it plays out, but let's go pull up some of your guys' charts here. Let's see, I think Euless posted his in chat room. But let me check. Oh, nope, he posted it private here. Look at that, you guys. What a nice little NQ. Okay, so Eula says, I was paper trading this megaphone last night, made a mistake, but learned a valuable lesson. I was anticipating the measured move from the smaller blue megaphone wave and confirmed it with the larger blue measured move wave. But I realized the second corrective wave box was in the wrong place. How would you be able to tell if it was going for third wave? And also, how can you tell if the fifth touch on the megaphone will break through after retracement? All right, so let's go back up here. So by the way, if anyone's trading that pivot there, you're getting really darn close to where that first main target is. And bam, right there. Okay, so this looks like a pretty good megaphone here. So what you've got going on here is the move up, the shift in the momentum. Look at the distance between the highs and the lows. What's going on there? Here and then here. What's the first thing you guys are seeing? Should be a little bit wider on the lows. Yeah, it tried a little bit too soon. So the shift up here is good, and that distance is good, but the distance between the lows is not. So that's one of the first things that we see on this one. Let's see, placement here. This is a 1 minute time frame. This is the 100 tick. So here is the megaphone. It's kind of hard for you guys to see it, but it's right in here. So that con that we saw there on that other chart, it's confirming on this bigger time frame because what we have going on here on this is if you're trying to short here, you've got a pullback, a pop up, and then a time correction with the megaphone. So the megaphone is actually a time correction that's coming out of this bigger two wave here and has that risk then to continue. So it's the larger time frame that is really giving this a big con on the downside, as well as what we just saw in the smaller time frames. So you're shifting momentum here. You've got the move down, shifts up here, transect it this way, then it pops when it breaks that channel. Base is there. And so when you're watching this, if you tried that as a short, you would have to see immediate reaction on the downside. And you know what? I was watching that when that was happening. And it did give the short trigger for the megaphone. But the trend placement was the problem. So let's watch this here. So here's the megaphone. So your continuation here, what you were looking at is this is a little like kneecap that's really similar to these kneecaps. So when you're looking at that time development, that's what you've got going on right there. So it's basically giving you this pullback here, and then the continuation is kind of this little portion. There's not really good time development measurements here that I can see to really help you out though with this one on the continuation. So this as this move, there's not really another base that's the same except going like here to here, except that it didn't confirm the continuation. So you'd have to really look back further to really make comparisons as far as the time development on this goes. What I would be watching for is this high, the zone of this high, and then where this is breaking out over here. Those are pretty close to measured spacing, and that would tell me that that would have a shot at breaking out there. So with this trying to go and do another wave up, the main reason that that has a chance to do another wave up, this goes back to our trend development classes. So first wave is really strong, but it's shorter. Second wave is really strong, but it's bigger. So that's usually going to do a third wave. It's not necessarily going to do a strong third wave. So if this middle move here is average to slightly stronger than average, there's potential for that to go and do a parabolic move, but it might also do a stunted third move. And in this case, you wouldn't necessarily know until you watch the momentum as it was starting to play out. So that goes back to our trends development classes for that one. Ooh, you want to see our pivot? Look at that. Right there. Right off that 61.8. And it's holding really strong. So neck level is 50%. Today would be an excellent class to show people how we can do this live, right? And how every little detail is coming into play. I love when we get a really nice market to follow like this with good trends. A lot of times we get it's choppy, but we have many times that it does this for us. They think I'm possessed. I have the sight, it's a crystal ball. Yeah, no, it's science. Science is cool. She blinded with me with science. Donna has given us our earworm for the day. We are going back to the 1980. So to tell if the fifth touch of Megaphone will break on that fifth touch, that goes back to the two things we were looking at earlier. One was the spacing between the lows wasn't right, so wasn't as easy to give us a reversal off of 0.5. And then the other thing was the trend placement. So the Megaphone ended up being a type of phoenix, which means that that fifth touch of highs up here, because this is stronger momentum up and down, gives us a time correction. So you've got the Megaphone is actually a phoenix. It's a mega phoenix. All right, let's see what else you guys got. Wow, today went fast. This is a good example of a mega phoenix, but what you'll see here happening in this one, that first pullback is kind of stunted. It goes to the higher high, and then you get a nice two wave for the pullback. So overall, you have a good phoenix in there. It's coming after, your two waves up that has the two-wave flush, the shift in momentum. So it's still a really good level. We call this a double tap here because you're basically coming right back into where the channel broke. So that's a good buy setup at that point. It just might be a little bit harder to see as easily. Not quite sure what you were looking at over here, except for, potential this could have gone into a megaphone here. It just didn't go for the lower low. So here's another example. And this is one that also did kind of a second chance entry. It gave you those two entries. So the great thing with this one is that your spacing is widening. You've got your widening going on here. And then when it comes up here, it does that shift. And then here, if you missed it, you've got another opportunity here, and then you've got another opportunity here when it comes right back into that range with the two-wave move. So you've got that avalanche that's part of it too. And again, this isn't as common that we would see that happening. So it's really similar to the other one that she had the yesterday. Or is this? Yeah. Yep. The one from yesterday too. Quran. Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of megaphones right now. And some of them are gonna be textbook and some of them aren't. As you're learning the patterns, start with trading the ones that are closest to textbook, but then track the ones that aren't quite there. This is working its way up. Watch for a little bit of a momentum shift as it comes up into that 50%. So if you still have some of the trade on, that's the zone we're looking at for target. But if it tries to do something that looks like a little too T, take some off there. So this is a 200 tick. You can drop down to the 50. And it's going pretty good. I think you're going to get there. There you go, right there. Market priestess. That's hilarious. It's all data analysis, you guys. Look at this. We are just looking at the odds. That's all we're doing. How perfect is that? It's just seeing the same things over and over and over and over and over again, and it's going to keep clicking. So you'll get clicks and clicks and clicks and like, yes, I've seen this before. This is what's going to happen. Yes, I've seen that before. That's what's going to happen. The thing with League of Traders is that you get the advantage of lots of other people that have seen things over and over and over again. So they can teach you them so you can learn from the other traders in the forum as well as myself. So like Donna, for example, she studies the megaphones a lot. That's a lot of what she trades. So if you follow along with her post, you'll learn a lot more about megaphones too. It's true. Totally true. 40 points up to 78.55. And then you're looking at measured moves. Let's add it. It sure is. It's also right at that measured move from the first continuation. Look at that, you guys. And this is going to be it here for a while. You'll see a bit of a bigger correction now at this point. See how this is an average impulse move now? So you can totally nail these exact highs and lows within a few ticks, just like we did here, here, even here when we were looking at, well, was it right here? I guess when we were looking at how is that going to react off of that low, it was right here. And then here, and here. Every single one of those. Just using technical analysis. Let's see. I'm not going to see everybody's charts here. I'm just going to pull up some that just kind of pop out to me. We got 2 more days. We're going to be studying this. And then, of course, you'll see them over and over again. Okay, that just goes back to the one that we already looked at. So here's one. This looks like Scott's chart. Is that Scott? Yep. So this is another one where you've got the megaphone playing out, and it's part of a bigger continuation play too. Notice the little shift that happens down here. So this is pulling it up. Here's 0.5, but since this is coming out of a bigger uptrend over here, when it hits 0.5, it's easier to break it. You also don't have the spacing that you need for a pivot up here because it's too close. You do have that spacing when it gets to over here, and we get more of a kind of megaphone-ish or a momentum reversal and then an avalanche type of move over here. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I hope you guys picked up a lot on today's session. It's really nice when we get, days like this that we can follow the market move by move. And it's always kind of a crap shot when we will, because sometimes when we come into class, the market will be like this right in here. And I'll be like, there's not really anything I would do much right here. But today it was kind, and we came right in with the mega launch triggering right at the start of class and going right through the main target here at the end of class. So it took an hour to play out, but you got moves both ways. All right, you guys, well, we're going to wrap this up here today and go back and study this. It's a perfect day to study, right? And I will see you back here tomorrow, and post those megaphones into the Telegram forum or send them over to me in private message. And I'll see you back here tomorrow. And Karan will remind me to repost the link for you guys. So you'll get the replay link here in a couple hours too. I'm just assuming he will. He always does. All right, you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe out there.